Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you took some time to join me here today. And today we're going to look at an absolute horrible failure of a painting that I did. And we're going to see how I improved it when I redid it. So just stick around and we'll get started in just a moment. So, of course, it wasn't an absolute utter failure, an unsuccessful, just mess of a painting. But sometimes we feel that way, don't we? We kind of look at our work and say, oh, I'm never going to improve. That's so horrible. That's so bad. And I'm just not growing and learning. And, we need to be honest and self-aware. But usually every painting has some elements that are good and some elements that need to be improved. And maybe in the total purpose for the painting, it might be unsuccessful. I mean, if your goal is to have a painting worth displaying on a wall or selling, then, maybe it doesn't deserve to rate that high. But it's successful in that it's a learning experience, and we need to be more real and self-aware. Part of growing and maturing as a painter is I'm learning, and let me just stop here for a moment and say, I'm not an art teacher. I'm not an expert. I am on a journey to learn and grow. And yes, I've had the privilege, the humbling privilege, to sell a number of paintings. And I've only been painting a short time in comparison to so many others. And so I know I have a long way to go to improve and become, hopefully someday, kind of a master painter. But I'm working and I'm growing. So I don't come to you today from a position of I've already arrived. I feel my niche here on YouTube is to share with you kind of just sort of in the trenches, a newbie. I'm not a beginner so much anymore, but intermediate to advanced, and I'm working on that and I'm growing. And so let me say this, part of what we need to learn as we grow in our painting is not only to develop our skills, our brush strokes, our color mixing, our composition understanding, but also to grow in our ability to evaluate our paintings. We look at a painting and say, something doesn't feel right about that. I don't think I like that. But why? What is it about a painting that we don't like? What is it about a painting that needs to be improved? Certainly it isn't all bad. So part of growing is to learn how to improve a painting. I will tell you that by my nature, I get bored with doing the same subject over and over. And yet every great painter that I've watched on YouTube or had the privilege to take some lessons from, they always say, do a subject over and over and over. And I find that to be a challenge. But I did this scene behind me, and I'm going to show you both of those in just a minute. I did this scene again, a second time. The first time was early in the lockdown of the pandemic, and I just needed to get out of the house. Everybody was kind of going stir crazy, and there was just this concern, global concern, and I just needed to get out. But of course I wanted to be remote and away from people. And so I drove up, and I live on the California coast, Northern California coast. And so I drove up and down looking for a spot that I could get. And I found this spot on a parking lot of all places that had a view of this big rock in Montera, which is just south of San Francisco. It's quite the landmark in this area. And I love it. And I found this sort of peekaboo scene that you looked out through some trees to it. And so I had a wonderful time painting it. And it was so relaxing and enjoyable. But even as I was painting, I'm like, I don't know how to make this happen. I don't know how to resolve this scene. I was just glad to get out of the house and to do it. But as I kept looking at the painting over the weeks and months, I'm like, I know I don't like it, but I don't know why I don't like it exactly. And then over the course of the year, I've taken some more lessons and been watching some more YouTube videos on composition and color theory, begin to observe things more. And so this last week in my studio here, I painted the scene again. I'm not sure that it's 100%, perfect painting. Are there ever perfect paintings, right? But I find it significantly improved, and I am much more pleased with it. So let me turn the camera around and let's take a few moments to actually look at the two paintings, and I will point out what's unsuccessful about the first and how I improved it in the second one. And we'll go from there. All right, so let's get going. Okay, so here on the left, and the only one you can see fully, is the first version that I did. And I did this again, plein air, out on location. And so let's just look at some things that I like about it, because obviously it's not entirely horrible. I like that I got some cloud back in there behind the trees. I kind of like this painterly sort of splotching for some of the flowers or, shrubbery, just so it doesn't look like it's, trying to be resolved tightly. And let me just say, my style that I prefer is representational, loose. I have no desire to be truly detailed. I like it to be a little bit messy. That's kind of my preference. But I tend to default when I get locked up and and I have this sort of frozen moment of, I don't know what to do. I tend to scumble a lot, just messy. I go too messy, and I don't take time to consider what it should be. Additionally, I often will get too hard of edges, and that's the problem. This is the focal point. And because in my mind, at the time, it was the focal point, I thought I should do more work on it. But what happened to it is that there's just too many hard edges. Because of the contrast and sort of the outline feel to it, it pulls it forward. And so you lose this sense that you're looking through trees out into the distance. The fact is that's far away across a bay, but it really kind of has this feeling like it's coming forward too much. Additionally, I even though I created distance here, this just is too far forward. Additionally, again, because I was starting to already feel like I wasn't fully comfortable with it, I just put some foreground brush. And while there's a lot of variety of color and texture and movement, there really isn't any depth. It's just a screen right up here, just flat. And so that's not something that's ideal as I've looked at it. Another thing that I don't think I care for is cedars and pines and all of them do have a really beautiful blue-green color to them. But over the months I've been observing more, and there really is a lot more golden browns in a lot of the greenery. Maybe right now in Northern Cal because we're going through drought. But I just feel like this came out just a little too vibrant, a little too blue. There's a lot of other problems as I drew the trunks in, and got foliage work, and it just doesn't look so good. Again, not a horrible throwaway painting, but it's not successful for the goals that, I want to get to. And so let's go ahead and take a moment now and look at one I just did. Okay. Now, here's the one that I just did. And again, I'm not going to state that this is a perfect painting and that it's arrived, but overall, I am so much more pleased with my growth on this, and I hope you like it as well. And I wouldn't mind some comments, some feedback, some suggestions from some of you that maybe are far more advanced. You're like, maybe you should consider this. But nonetheless, I feel like I've done a lot more through lessons I've taken recently, understanding of composition. So first off, both of them are this composition of a circle structure that you're looking through to see the focal point. But this one versus the other was very much flat framed, okay? But this one has much more of a spiral sort of effect. You know, it's drawing you up and down to it. Either way you go, it's sort of this spiral sort of drawing you in. Additionally, because I've softened this a lot more, even though it's the focal point, you know that's what your eye is drawn to. It does just look further away. There is an atmospheric feeling to this that is much better. And the reality is that rock in the bright sunlight of that day really is more washed out white. You don't see all the contrast of the crags and even though there's a lot of wet rock down here because it's at the shore, it's still, being further away in the sunlight, was washed out more. Now, I told you that usually I make this, scumble, I don't know what to do. And well, I've realized that you need to kind of layer it. That's not flat now. There is depth. This is back behind that. I've grown in my ability to create shadows, and you see branches spiking out there. And additionally, my trees have a much more painterly feel to them. And as I stated already, that I've browned the foliage instead of this deep, bright blue-green. There really is a less harsh, vibrancy. Instead, there is this harmonious warmth to the painting. And it was a warm day, even though there is dark values here of some shadowing under this big canopy of trees. It still was a bright day. And so I feel like this is a far more successful painting as a result. So let's look at them side by side just to get a broader comparison. All right, here they are next to each other, both of them fully in the frame, for you to see the side-by-side full comparison. Same basic compositional intention, but clearly the depth, the atmospheric feeling, you being drawn deep into the painting. And of course, the color tones are all so much better on the more recent one. Again, nothing fully, it's not a horrible, I had some art friends of mine say, don't call it unsuccessful. There are things that are good in there. There are things that they liked, and again, it's not black or white, all or nothing, which I tend to be. And we often are such harsh critics to ourselves that, that we get that way sometimes. We really, get down on ourselves. But ultimately, it is an unsuccessful painting for what my goals and intention of a painting are to be. Now, there are some things probably on this new one that could be improved. Perhaps the ocean water is a little too bright of a blue. The California waters in Northern Cal tend to have a deeper, murkiness, a greenness to them. But that day was a sunny day, and I recall it being a bit more bright, and there's certainly nothing wrong with blue water. But, if I want to try to be matchy-matchy on the colors, there are probably some changes that could be made in that regard as well. But overall, I feel that the painting is so much better, and not only my ability to paint it is improved, but my ability to evaluate my work with an honesty and an understanding of composition and color and moving it forward. And so I feel really good just about that part of the journey as well. I hope you enjoyed that side-by-side view and explanation of what I feel is an unsuccessful painting versus one that is improved. And hopefully that will help you to learn to evaluate your work as well, and then not get down on yourself for learning journeys and steps and growing and developing your skill. Again, not just your skill to paint, but your skill to evaluate what you need to improve. And so thank you for joining me on that. I'd love for you to visit my website, lenbanks.com, and you could look at other paintings that I've done over the years, and maybe even visit my shop and buy some prints, cards, or one of the actual paintings. That would be fantastic. I also hope that if you've stayed this long that you would subscribe if you haven't already. Go ahead and like and make comments, what you liked about either of these paintings, what you think could be improved, how your journey's going, some of the current lessons that you're learning as well. That would be wonderful. I really do respond to all the comments generally, and would look forward to that. Also, if you would consider maybe sponsoring me a little bit through my Buy Me a Coffee link. That's a way to just kind of help me be encouraged to keep making videos like this, and so I'd appreciate you doing that as well. Hey, thank you again for joining me. If you're a painter, happy painting to you. Do well, enjoy your journey of improving and being creative, and that'll be wonderful, and I look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Bye-bye.